What's up, Infected? Welcome to the Kwarenteen. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a game by the name of Heirs of the Wizard King. Now this game's coming to Kickstarter. If you like what you see here, I'm going to have a link up in the corner and down in the description when it's available. That'll take you directly to the Kickstarter page that'll provide way more information than I could possibly cover in this video. And another thing I have to note before we continue is that everything you see here in this video is a Kickstarter prototype of the game and is of course subject to change. So what is Heirs of the Wizard King? Well, thematically, you're all wizard apprentices, where you have the Wizard King, and every couple generations, he selects a few people who have a spark of talent to train under him to become his heir, I guess, when he passes. But there's been a dark mage, I think is what he's called, a black wizard, that wound up killing the Wizard King. So now you have to continue your training to get powerful enough to fight back against the Black Wizard and try to take your rightful place on the throne. Mechanically, it is a set collection game where you're all competing against each other. You also have the Black Wizard in the middle of the table that you all kind of have to work together to keep him under control as well. Because if you let the Black Wizard go out of control, everybody's going to lose and the Black Wizard's going to win instead. So there's a little bit of, it's for every man for himself, but you still have to reluctantly work together. It's just a matter of how much do you want to work together to keep the Black Wizard under control. So let's just head over to the overview. In Heirs of the Wizard King, the players are going to be competing against each other to go from 1 to either 5, 6, or 7 points, depending on the number of players. All the while, they're going to be trying to increase the 6 schools of magic as well as their actual point value. However, you have to keep the Black Wizard under control because the moment he reaches whatever your goal is based on the number of players worth of points, then the Black Wizard is then declared the victor. You're then going to start off with a single point that you have a 1-chain card, which will make sense later, and throughout the course of the game you're going to be increasing this until you get to whatever player count that you're playing to. Then each player is going to receive 1 card as the beginning of their first chain, and then each player is going to get a number of cards into their hand equal to whatever place that they're sitting in the turn order. So if you're first, you're only going to get 1 card, but if you are player 4, you're going to start out with 4 cards in your hand. So on your turn, you're going to do one of 3 different actions. You're going to be able to play a card, so you would take this card, you would do whatever it says down here in the bottom, and then you'd put it into the discard pile. The other action is you could learn an ability, so I could take this card, it's purple, so I can put it into the discard pile and increase my purple spell to level 1. And if I were to next round do that again, say with the purple, I would increase it to level 2, so on and so forth. Now, the third action you can do is you can use one of your token abilities. So, for example, with this purple, you would read, it says, on your draw step, instead shuffle your hand and discard pile into the deck and then draw this symbol number of cards. So if I was level 2, I would be able to take my hand on my turn, activate that ability, discard this, and then draw 2 cards or 5 cards if I was level 5. Then after you've performed your 1 action, you're going to create chains. Now if we look here, when it's time for us to create a chain, we have to match like numbers or colors in order to create a chain. So you can create a chain to the left or to the right. So for example, looking at my hand here, I can drop this 5 here because they match numbers. But then I can drop this 6 here because it matches now the color. And I could do it, this way, maybe throw, let's see here, another 5 over here, drop another 5 over here, because these chains are, we started with this, there's a 5 and a 5, a 5 and a 5, and an orange, so you've created a chain. Now it needs to be noted that once you have completed a chain, which will make sense in a second, you cannot place any more cards. So even though I'm able to chain this here, if I'm working on a 6-card chain, this has to stay in my hand, or a 3-card chain, this has to stay in my hand because I already have 3 cards in my chain. So in for example, if I already have completed a two-card chain, My next card is going to require a 3-point chain. So with these 3 cards here, I cannot progress this chain any further. Even though I have the ability to with this card, I can't because the next chain is a level 3. Then you're going to discard and score all chains. Now by all chains, it's not just you, it's you, every other player, including the Black Wizard, which we'll get to a little bit more momentarily. And to score a chain, because we scored a 3-point chain, we will move this up to the number 3, showing that now we need to work on a 4-card chain. Then, if you have equal to or less than whatever your hand limit is, which is based on the number of players, you will then draw 2 cards. But if you have over whatever your current hand limit is, you don't discard down, you just don't get to draw cards. Then you're going to deal a card out to the Black Chain. Now, it needs to note that the Black Chain forms chains based on the number of cards in their chain. They do not have to follow the rule of same number or same color. So this would automatically, at the next player's turn, because you score everybody's chain, the next one, these would be discarded, and the Black Chain would move up by 2. And then you, at the end of each player's turn, you're going to add more and more cards. So now they have a 3-card chain. So at the next player's turn, this goes up by 3. So you have to keep this Black Wizard under check. Now the game is won once one player reaches the final step of their score. So for example, if I'm playing a 4-player game, first person to reach 5 points wins. Keeping in mind, you don't score until the next player's turn. Alright, Heirs of the Wizard King. Well, the components first and foremost are really nice. The little tokens are very clear. There's not a lot of, you can't really mistake one card for the other. Most of the artwork in the game is identical, save for the number of little white spheres that are on it dictate what the number is on the card. However, the legendary cards, they all have unique art, which is kind of a nice touch because you're not, these are the legendary spells, so I feel they should be unique. So it's a nice little touch. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little more variety in the artwork, but it's perfectly fine the way it is, and it still feels thematic because the lower cards are the lower spells. So what about the gameplay? Well, overall the gameplay is actually really fun. There's a surprising amount of depth and strategy to the game because the total, huge number of abilities that are on these cards, and the ability on the card directly correlates to what the actual token ability does. So if you learn the ability and you just raise your ability on the token chart, you're going to be doing similar things, but by doing that you're not relying on the card value anymore, you're just relying on your own power. So it allows you to sacrifice a few cards in the beginning to get those ranks up, so that way you can hold on to more cards to be able to complete chains. Or do you ignore that and then burn through your card abilities to be able to do the stronger abilities and not waste turns just learning new things? But then, of course, you cheat yourself out of cards that you need in order to complete your chains. But then on top of everything, because you're competing with everybody, you really have to keep that Dark Wizard under control because he doesn't follow the same rules as you, which is kind of thematic because he killed the previous king, so he's not following the rules, obviously. And he's making his own rules. And so it kind of feels a little thematic in that way, but you have to keep him under control because he doesn't follow chain rules. If he has that many cards in his chain, then he scores it on the next turn, and that gets really out of control really fast. So you all are reluctantly working together because if you don't do something about him, he's going to run away with the game. So it's like every man for himself, but I guess I'll use my turn to do this, and then you're all fighting over who's gonna get him under control. And it's a really cool concept. I love when games do that. Now, that's not to say the game is perfect. Of course, it has its flaws just like every game, and this one's no different. So the biggest flaw that, of course, everybody's going to see is that it is a card-based game. You could really get screwed just based on the cards. If you're not getting the cards you need for your chain, then you're going to have a hard time. That said, there's that mitigation factor of, okay then, start leveling up your skills instead, so you're not having to rely on the powers of the cards, so you can just start hoarding more and more cards, and it makes it a little easier. You know, you're having trouble, maybe start, I think it's the time one, where you can rewind time and just keep cycling your entire hand. And so that, you know, there's mitigation to it, but that is going to turn some groups off. That it is a card game first and foremost, so it does have that luck element to it. The other thing that we had was kind of more of a minor problem. It happened in a couple of games. Sometimes the game, if you're, depending on the group you're playing with, you're not going to have a whole lot of fun with it. I don't really know what kind of group you should be playing this with, but some people just, it just didn't fit with them. It was kind of slow, it was kind of boring. But then other games I played with, other groups that I played with, loved it. There was a lot of laughing and hooting and calling each other a jerk and other, you know, names that are not very family friendly because you played a card, or maybe you said you were going to take care of the, you know, the black card or the black wizard, then you decided not to. So then now it's pushed onto somebody else, but then do they do it? And so, you know, you do have, it's going to be very polarizing. You know, some games are going to kind of be a little slow, kind of be a drag. Especially the beginning of the game is kind of slow, kind of a drag when things are just kind of slowly ramping up. Other than that, those are really the only two issues that we really had with the game. You know, it's a card-based game. We didn't really have a problem with that. But then that some games just seem to drag a little longer than they should be. The game can sometimes feel like it overstays its welcome. But overall, the game is a lot of fun. That simple mechanic that it's every man for himself. But if you don't keep that Black Knight under control, or the Black Wizard under control, you're all gonna lose. And that's such a simple, awesome little mechanic that we all love. And then something I didn't even mention in the overview, certain abilities will flip him over, so nothing, you know, nobody's putting cards on him anymore. So that's cool, it slows him down. But when you have to reshuffle that deck, you flip him back over. So then now you're getting mad at the players that are burning through the deck really fast and drawing all these cards. You're like, dude, what are you doing? The Black Wizard's gonna turn back over really fast if you do that. And so there's just so many really cool mechanics and really cool situations and things that happen during the game that definitely outweigh all those negatives. For such a tiny little game, we had a blast with it. There's not a lot of flaws. Like I said, both of those, the card-based, there's mitigation for the cards. You know, don't like the card draws? Just start focusing on your abilities instead, or start cycling your hand using the time-traveling ability, or the spider ability, or blow up somebody else's hand if they're running away with it. And so, you got that mitigation. And then, as with every game, I don't know about you, but even some of my favorite games, you're gonna have some games that just, if something felt off about it, and this game's no different. But most of the games we played were outstanding. We had a blast with it. So anyways, that is my review for Heirs of the Wizard King. So anyways, I hope you enjoy my channel. I'll see you next time in the Kwarenteen.
As with every game,